Thanks. Thanks.
Morning, Ayo, and good
Morning.
morning, Lagos.
And good morning, Mr. Eku. Eku, what's today? I missed that greeting. Devoe Okorie, welcome.
Well, congrats.
Thank you, sir.
Eku Ekabo and Eku Corona battles.
Wow, still on that, yes. And please send messages to WhatsApp 0809444091 on Twitter.
At Smooth981 FM is our Twitter handle. Kindly use the hashtag freshlypressed981. On YouTube, we're streaming live. Go onto YouTube, Smooth981 FM Lagos. You can use the live chat option there to send in your message. And the on our WhatsApp platform, the headline stories have been posted. The picture of the headline stories are posted. And our first story here, good news. And Divo, I'm actually happy that you're the one taking this. Happy to put this to you because we know that you have one leg in one country, one leg in this other country.
Ubuntu.
Is half South African.
So South Africa enters recession, unfortunately, again as Nigeria emerges Africa's biggest economy. This Punch report states that Nigeria has overtaken South Africa as the biggest economy in Africa as the latter enters its second recession in 2 years. Now, this is coming earlier than I'm sure this report was based on figures before coronavirus broke out because we have in the news today that the World Bank is concerned about it triggering another recession. Of course, it was
Yes.
particularly in I won't call us third world countries, but particularly in countries in sub-Saharan Africa. But can you please take us through this story?
Yes, and I think the story needs to be put in context. There's nothing here to celebrate. But the real issue with this article is pointing out how South Africa has passed through too technical or too conservative decline in growth. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and once you have it twice, one quarter, the second quarter, this happened in 2019. You can technically say that the country is in a recession. In terms of their growth rate, they declined by about 1.4%. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
following the statistics that came out, as against Nigeria, which had grown about 2.27 against many of the global indices that we would grow at about 1.9%. Now, that's not as if we grew fast, but we did grow. Now, before now, when you compare the South African and the Nigerian GDPs, on one angle, because of exchange rate, if you use the official rates of 305, before now we were above them. If you use the market rates, which is around 360,
360, yeah.
we would be below. But now both market rates and official rates put us above the South African GDP at 402 billion or 476 billion, depending on the GDP depending on the exchange rate you use, as against the South African GDP of 352 billion, given their own exchange rate. Now, what are we trying to say with this? Okay, yes, South Africa is going through their own recession. They've had some serious power cuts. They've been having issues with their state-owned
Eskom.
ESCOM, the power enterprise, as well as other major state-owned enterprises. So they're looking at how they can review that and make some savings to push their economy forward. But what I want Nigerians to actually take into cognizance here is that you see, South Africa is really developed in terms of their industry and their real sector, and this is where they are in terms of their GDP. But Nigeria, we are operating at base level. We've not even cut the cake or started doing anything major, and we are at this 402 billion. So what that means is that if Nigeria can get its act together in terms of real sector and industrial growth, in terms of fixing our power reforms and all of that,
Yes.
Nigeria would not even, it wouldn't be a case of, oh, you beat one person. You'll be clearly above them.
Mm-hmm. We'll be
Okay.
the real giants of
Yes,
Africa.
we'll be the real giants of Africa. And that's what I need Nigerians to understand. Because, the way the paper puts it that we beat South Africa, it's like going to your small cousin,
Mm-hmm.
or how did they say it? You have a doctorate, a PhD,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to a secondary school over and saying I'm more educated than you. We need to be looking up. We need to be competing with the people who have the same potentials that we have.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That word potential, really key. We move on to our next story very quickly. And again, of course, I'm sure that you know that probably every day would have a story on updates on coronavirus. Many updates, but we chose this one. Interesting headline from this day newspaper: Fear of coronavirus forces House to suspend plenary for 2 weeks. Gbolahan, even more interesting is the detail of the story. And what it from when you read this story from this day newspaper, it would show just to what extent our representatives are aware of what is really happening. And some of their responses is quite shocking. Please take us through this story.
Well, I mean, this was at yesterday's plenary, which was held at the National Assembly on Tuesday, and a notion was raised by the Honorable House of Rep member Idem Uyem at the plenary on Tuesday that due to the coronavirus that we have, the National Assembly should be considering shutting down the House of Reps for 2 weeks, looking at the condition that we are currently facing in the country, which is the coronavirus case. And this was seconded by one or two other House of Rep members, which is Honorable Ndume Lumelu, who also now mentioned that we not only is the National Assembly not able to deal with the situation because of the insecurity matters that they're dealing with in the National Assembly, but they also are not prepared enough because they do not have things like temperature measuring devices. And they also made references to the insecurity challenges that they are also facing, that in the past, they've had several people that have walked into the National Assembly unattended to, and these are people that they were not even aware were coming into the National Assembly. So in that case, they're now talking about closing down the National Assembly for 2 weeks. I mean, there are a lot of questions that we should be asking in this, because when we're talking about our National Assembly shutting down for 2 weeks, it only goes to prove the point that we have people who are getting paid for doing nothing. Because if you are really working, this I wouldn't believe should be at the front burner of the case. And the reason why I said this shouldn't be at the front burner is that when we look at the case of coronavirus at the moment now, we only have one case presently now. And the case is, I have to give Lagos State government and the Nigerian government and the Center for Disease Control kudos so far. They've done exceptionally well in managing and containing coronavirus at the moment. At least this gentleman who came in, the Italian that came into the country, only came in over a week ago. And since he's coming, we haven't actually had any case of a second infection or not.
We have
so
had people put in.
We have had people being quarantined, but there has been no outbreak at present. And when we now compare this to cases in America, we've had 6 deaths in America. And so far, the National Assembly in America haven't talked about the National Assembly at all. They are working. These guys are working. What this is telling us is that these people do not have confidence in our healthcare system. And it is very unfortunate, because what I would expect is that these are the people that should be passing a vote of confidence on our healthcare system and giving them a lot of credit for the work. This is not what we want to be reading in our national headlines. And I would also cast our minds back that these are the same set of House of Reps member when this case broke out and a lot of countries were evacuating their citizens out of China. Our House of Reps member voted not to evacuate their citizens out of China.
Thank you. Just one question I'd like to ask, and thanks so much for analyzing this story. One of the things I'd like to ask is, or one of the things that shocked me in this report, is that Honorable Ndudi Elumelu actually said that the driver had not been found, which is false.
It's false.
So it means that
the driver.
So the driver who
he said something on false information.
So there was a rumor around that the driver had
fake news.
And he actually quoted that fake news as fact, as one of the reasons why.
So it just indicates how dangerous fake news can be.
Not necessarily.
No, these guys are just out of. They're out of contact with reality.
No, I'm just giving him the benefit of doubt. However, I would expect the Ministry of Information, which they have connection to be the one to ascertain the level of threats in the National Assembly.
This rumor was debunked on various media. Various media debunked this news story. So the fact that you're still quoting that, it's worrying.
It is worrying. Let's take messages, please. JP says, good morning, freshly pressed. Suspending plenary totally negates the narrative and what we've seen so far, that Nigeria is ready to tackle COVID-19. I've always maintained the legislative arm does not look out for the populace. Cheers. Ms. Sonia says, we need to shut down Nigeria for 2 weeks. What's good? No, it doesn't work out like that, Mrs. Sonia. Chijoke from Lekki says, I suggest the Presidency and National Assembly embark on a fact-finding mission to Wuhan province in China to learn.
But they have. The director of the National Disease has gone and come back.
Thank you very much, Chijoke. Wasiu says, from Olodia Papa says, suspend plenary, not even Ebola. Let's shut down the country then. As there are various companies been shut down.
True.
Good question. Ogumbe says, okay. Judge B says, thank you very much, Judge B, for your message. And Emeka from Ikeja just calls it House of Jokers, sending the wrong panic signal.
Exactly. That they have to understand that it also sends panic to the populace. It's very important, their actions. Let's move on to the next story, and this is on security. We're celebrating wins, aren't we? I think it was Rosemary who had mentioned earlier that we ought to celebrate small wins.
Yes.
Talking about that, Devoe Vanguard reports that troops neutralized 9 Boko Haram Islam terrorists, rescued 28 women, children. So the Nigerian to read the northeast of terrorism have neutralized 9 Boko Haram Islam terrorists after several firefight and clearance operations. During the clearance operations in the Lake Chad axis, 2 Chadian mercenaries fighting for the Shekau faction surrendered 2 troops, citing the heavy bombardment of the Nigerian military as one of the reasons. So please take us through the story, Devoe.
Basically, it's a report on various victories that the military have won in various aspects of the this insurgency war. Now, this is coming to the papers, obviously due to the large fear that's on ground, especially with the almost technical resurgence of the terrorists. However, the Director of Army Public Relations, Colonel Aminu Liasu, was giving details on various accounts, okay? And there were victories in Lake Chad, Axis, there were victories in Damawa, there were victories in Magagali, victories in Baga, in Gwoza, at various points in time. And what he basically said was insurgents were being decimated, hence the scattering. And in most of the cases where there was a victory, what would normally happen, the features are they recover weapons, assault rifles, explosive, they rescue captives, those have been caught, and in some cases they capture, they kill, or they wound some of the insurgents. And he said that they are resolute in defeating banditry, kidnapping, terrorism, armed robbery, cattle rustling, and all forms of sundry crimes across the nation. Now, small pockets of victories are not what we want to hear, okay? Information management on behalf of DHQ has been a difficult point.
Yeah.
What we want to see is an effective strategy to counter insurgency and these high crimes in the country once and for all. Now, let me defend the military at this point in time. You see, the military is not structured to deliver internal security. That's an aspect we haven't really looked at. The military, the way they're trained, when there's external aggression, they more or less they hit it and they eliminate it. Their job is done. Now you're asking them to deal in civic matters, which they're not trained for. And there is a body that is structured and legislated constitutionally to deal with that. That is the police. So there's a huge gap here. And most times when we keep looking onto the military to do this, it's not their job. Even their own bit was to assist, okay, to help bring it down and then hand over the police. But we know that even when there's a handover, especially the time, if you remember when they said they were leaving some parts, everybody raised their hands and said, no, don't go. That's not how it's meant to be. There's meant to be a body that is meant to ensure that there's internal security going on. I am requesting that this is where the security architecture is rejigged. All that money that goes into military defense, you need to cut a sizable portion for the Nigerian police, okay? Let's not even talk about community policing now, but you need to revamp the Nigerian police so that they can deliver this state of security that we're looking for.
And it goes beyond cars. It goes beyond
Yes.
just changing their cars.
Training,
Their
employment,
offices, exactly.
recruitment, welfare.
Thank you so much. Talking about community policing, we'll be going into that story shortly. We have some comments. AJ says, "Good morning, Freshly Press. It's a pity that our honorable have decided to take the dishonorable path by taking a recess to dodge Corona. Why is this done? The country should be shut down then. This is very insensitive. The now sits in a index case is in Lagos. What is all this? Shame to these people."
All right, next message here. This is Olalua from Third Mainland Bridge. Thank you for listening. He said, talking about shutdown, our lawmakers have clearly showed us how incompetent and lazy they are. Shame on them. Adela, I guess the Chadian that surrendered will be educated abroad with taxpayers' money. JP says, I think we need to be clear. The police can't handle this insurgency, as we're basically in a war situation. Revamping the police won't happen soon to treat this issue, in my opinion. And Chibozo says from Yaba, it's quite funny that these national assemblies do not know their work. If they are shutting the plenary or shutting down the plenary, will they shut their salaries? These people need reorientation. We'll go to the next story. Gbolahan, representatives have passed a bill criminalizing the casualization of workers, essentially saying that casual workers are left to work beyond or still, being employed beyond 6 months. Some penalties have been put in place. Fines, 2 million naira fine or imprisonment of 2 years. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, this is an interesting bill, and it touches on a lot of things. And we're talking about the Labour Act now, which affects pretty much everybody, or a lot of the working class in Nigeria. It's very important. And many a times we've heard of companies, banks, telcos, foreign companies that have engaged individuals only to let them go and shut down whatsoever. And this happens a lot. We've had this situation happen so many times where a lot of complaint has been raised that you used as a casual worker for years without being confirmed. The normal thing to do, of course, is that normally when you engage people, usually you would engage them on a probationary basis, most likely for 6 months. If you're satisfied with the level of work, you confirm them and make it permanent. Now, when you make workers permanent, they're entitled to other benefits such as leave allowances, taking leave, and also other healthcare benefit, pensions, and HMOs and what have you. But in this case, you find out that a lot of companies do that, where they just engage people and they leave them permanently. And now we've had the House of Rep who has been looking into this matter for quite a while, and this bill is passed second reading. The next thing would be to have a public hearing afterwards, where you would have a lot of representation from the people. Now, what this act, the amendment has done, there's been an amendment on Section 8, and what it has said is that every worker who has worked up to 6 months must be engaged and is employment regularized. And now there are terms to the disengagement too. If you must disengage anybody who's worked beyond that period of 6 months, then you should pay them 2 months, and you also pay them some allowances too. And just as you mentioned, if any company should violate this, there's a 2 million fine and or 2 years in prison. Now, the question I would like to raise, there are reasons why companies do this. The lawmakers, have they gone to establish the reasons why they do this? Part of the reasons why they do this and the reason why they can get away with this is...
You mean the companies?
Yes, the companies. It's because of, we know what the situation that we're facing. One, the unemployment figures are very high. Secondly, cost of running businesses.
I think that should be number one.
Well,
Because if you're going to assess unemployment, you would actually employ people and give them their full benefits.
Absolutely.
The major reason, I think, in my opinion, and you're entitled to yours, is because they want to cut costs.
Absolutely, it is.
Wants to spend so much money on
it is. I mean, I'm not putting any other priority to it, but these are the reasons why, just as you said.
Yes.
Unemployment figures are high, and you also have high cost of doing business. The ease of doing business in Nigeria is tough doing business. Employers look for ways of trimming down their cost, and one of the easiest ways of trimming down the cost is making people contract staff so that you avoid all those other additional costs to it. But let's see what happens when we get the public hearing, how this would go. But one would also employ the House of Reps members to find ways of making it easier for businesses to thrive and survive in Nigeria.
That's right.
If they can, then of course there'll be more employment, there'll be more people
In 2 weeks'
gainfully
time,
employed.
we can ask them
Holiday.
this question. They'll reset. All right, let's move on to we have a few stories to get to. Let's move on quickly to them. Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Ondo, Oshun assemblies passed Amotekun bill. New Telegraph, we've discussed this over throughout the process. So when it was conceived, going to the state assemblies, them coming together to do it. So please take us to the story.
Well, as I say, united we stand, and that's what has taken place here. The southwestern states, 5 out of 6, that is Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Ondo, Oshun, with the exception of Ekiti. I don't know what happened in Ekiti. However, these 5 House of Assemblies, that's in the individual state assemblies, as of yesterday, they did pass the Amotekun law into passage, and it will go for the governor's assent. Now, it had gone through the full process of the 3 readings, and I think this is something people need to take note of what is the legislative process.
Yes.
And with the 3 readings also came public hearings with stakeholders to ensure that everybody had their input, and in each of the respective state assemblies, it was agreed that the security outfit should come to pass. Now, let me highlight what happened in Lagos State, and this is what the federal government was referring to, that each state assembly legislate this into their own law. Now, in Lagos State Assembly, as it was passed, some of the highlights that they mentioned was that the Amotekun bill would come on, it would be captured under the Lagos State Neighborhood Safety Corps, okay? And I'm sure many people have seen them already in motion, and that they would be a special division under that, and that the corps members would not operate as a police, neither would they be hired or follow any politician or be used for political activity. And they stated some of the criteria for employment. Now, also they stated that the name was not the Amotekun Corps. Rather, it would be referred to and called Lagos State Neighborhood Safety Corps. So you can see how a state on its own, that's Lagos State, has tailored this to its own infrastructure and how it operates.
I think that's important because you remember when this was mooted, the idea, there was this conversation. People were asking, okay, so is that it's almost duplicating roles? We already had this Lagos Neighborhood Safety Corps. So I like that you made that clear.
Yes,
that's integrated under the
and
that's especially that also relates to how it should be tailored uniquely to each state.
Yes, to each state.
I know different states have outfits like this.
And they did also state that it's not a regional outfit; it's a state outfit, but it can collaborate with other state outfits. We would want to really commend the southwestern governors on this move, and not just for the fact that they were able to address security, but I need people to learn this is the process. You want to get things done, this is how you get things done. So many of the issues that we suffer, maybe we don't know their names, but get to know your state assembly members so that you can start addressing some of these issues that perennially affect Nigeria's social welfare and development.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have messages to go through on WhatsApp 0809 444 981. Eji says, I do not agree with the analysis on casualization of labor in Nigeria. The main reason is greed. Many organizations can afford their staff, but the top will rather keep everything for themselves. Olufemi says, thank you for sending several times, so we'll read it now. Almost every week, there is news about the military killing some Boko Haram terrorists and destroying their camps. Why destroy their camps without first gathering evidence of a crime? Where are the phones of the terrorists? Where evidence of their phone calls, text messages, chats, bank alerts can be used as intelligence to track their sponsors? And I'll also add that some information is sensitive to intelligence gathering, and not all of them is made public.
Next story.
All right, this time around, I'll come to you, Gbolahan, for analysis. New Telegraph reports that the West African Examinations Council, WAEC, has announced a 32.23% pass in the West African Senior Certificate Examination for Private Candidates 2020 First Series. What are your thoughts regarding this pass mark? Is it better than previous years? What does it say?
Well, what we can see here is that they're just basically breaking down the details of how the results came. Now, If you know by now, generally the scores in WAEC have been generally declining in terms of the quality of the exam, and not also the quality, the gender ratio between male and female. Now, WAEC is the testing examination body. It is not the body that educates, okay? So what it shows us is that there is a lot of homework that needs to be done in our educational sector to stem this decline in the quality of results that we get. Though they're improving how they send the results through electronic passaging, how people even register, etc. But the quality of the pass marks, this is at 32.2%, is gradually declining. And I think it's a call at the usual collapse of our educational sector. Some of these results are no surprise. Many people are basing their education on private schools, which should not be the case. It doesn't mean that if you don't have money, you shouldn't be educated. Even though there is a UBEC plan, governments have not been able to pay their counter fund to reap that amount.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to the next story, Gbolahan was very, very eager to take this. I know it's pretty interesting because we heard rumors that, rumors were spread. I won't say I heard because I didn't. Rumors were spread that the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbadabiamila, came under fire. He was rumored to have sent 300 guests to celebrate his mother's birthday in Dubai, you know. But he said, no, this is not true. The Media and Publicity Special Advisor, Lanre Lasisi, came out with this to debunk the story on Monday. But your thoughts?
Well,
were you there, though?
No, I wasn't.
Because I know you.
One of the critical factors here is that they said he spent public funds.
Yes,
if
absolutely.
If you use his private funds, you can send his entire.
You know, once you hear a speaker, a government worker, a government
it raises a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So, I'll start by, just as you said, rumors had it. Yes, that he flew 300 to Dubai to celebrate his mom's 90th birthday. And what a coincidence too that it turned out, and it was said that this party or this phone fair was meant to be taking place between the March 2nd and the 10th, so it's a week jamboree. So
7 nights.
7 nights. And so it was also rumored that the plenary is going on recess just simply because perhaps a lot of all these House of Reps members are going to be showing their faces at the parties too. It did turn out that Honorable Gbadabiamila did not chair, he wasn't the speaker, did not chair the House yesterday. So he was obviously absent at the House of Rep yesterday on Tuesday. And so it's such a coincidence that we're closing for 2 weeks now, and a party is going to be taking place in Dubai for 1 week.
I like how you're linking the story, but does it have any connection?
Well, who knows?
Unconnected, as they say.
Yeah, who knows? But the thing I would like to go to is, Sarah reporters did report that he was spending public funds, and he's come out now to debunk that these are not public funds, and there are no public officials that are going to be present at this party that is having. There are only just few friends and family members who will be present at this party. But it raises a lot of questions. And the questions that it raises is that how come, why we are having our national, our leader of the House of Rep going for a 90th birthday party of his mother?
It's his mother.
It's his mother. There's no doubt. But let's cast our mind back that this was the same House of Rep member as well that had his wife's 50th, who splashed out money buying a premium car for his wife.
It was seen as flamboyant.
It's seen as flamboyant, and it smacks. There's nothing wrong with spending money, but it smacks of insensitivity to the Nigerian citizens, hardworking people, where your National Assembly member can afford this flamboyant lifestyle.
Is it your money?
The question that it raises is that where's the money coming from?
Okay, so how would you rather?
Is he running a business? Is he Alhaji Dangote?
How would you rather have it?
How would I rather have it?
Yes. How would you prefer he celebrates his mother's 90th?
He can celebrate it in his house. He can even have a party.
He has the right to celebrate as he wishes.
But you have to be sensitive.
I think what is important here is that the National Assembly members owe a job duty to Nigerians, and we need to keep that in focus, not what they do in their spare time, but we should ensure that they do their duties and deliver bills that work for the interest of Nigerians and their welfare. And remember, the problem here is that no one Nigerian can speak against the National Assembly. It is the constituents where they come from that can check their own representatives. So where is he from? Surulere. If they are not happy with him, they should be the ones making the move.
But if they're happy, should we be quiet? I like how you said that.
Do people know how to complain?
I'm from Lagos State, and I have some things to say.
Okay.
I will say it to my rep.
It's sensitive.
Thank you for your messages as you send them on WhatsApp. Let's keep this conversation going with the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. Tweet at Smooth981FM. You can tweet at Devoe Okorie and at Gbolahan MrGQuest. Myself and Ayo, we're here for the next few segments. The next one is sports inside of the locker room. Stay with us.
We can't do nothing.
Of course, you can't do anything, but it's wrong. It doesn't speak well. You can spend your money.
Wants to spend, take all his family members.
Why are you discussing about the money? Are you saying he stole it?
Well, okay, how come? How is he able to afford this? How many average Nigerian can afford all this?
So wait, that's what I'm saying. That the question I would ask is, did he submit his statement of accounts to?
Did he declare his assets?
Declare his assets at the beginning. How much did he have?
Go and check now.
Yeah, exactly. Is it commensurate to the excessive spending? That's how you investigate.
Can your average Nigerian afford this lifestyle? Can your average Nigerian afford this?
You're being sensible.
The average Nigerian cannot afford.
No, but that's Dangote. It's a businessman. We know where his money is coming from.
See where Gbajabi and Mira's money is.
No, but you're being sentimental. That's not the issue.
How is that being sentimental?
Let me hear Devoe. What's the issue?
If they're not overpaid, if your National Assembly members are not being overpaid, how can you afford a G-Wagon?
But
how can you fly people?
But they are.
So that's the problem.
No, but the way you sound, the valid points, right? But would you expect him to trek? Would you expect him not to buy his wife a car? Would you expect him not to celebrate a milestone of a birthday is 90 years?
So we do.
But the real question is, your question. I mean, you're questioning all those things that he's spending and everything. If he was performing better, if he was doing some,
even then,
okay,
even
on
overpaid.
No.
These guys are overpaid.
So
They are overpaid.
What's
the question?
Was this not debunked?
What's the bunk?
No,
He debunked
he still went to Dubai.
He still went to Dubai with his family member now.
All these people.
Not with 300, but he went with family members. They said the number of people.
He flew a whole jet.
Yes, and he said public officials won't be there. Let us look at the pictures
They will
now.
be
They
there.
won't take pictures.
Attend. What you should be concerned is this. If you're not happy that he spent so much, they should probe him.
Yeah, exactly.
Find out whether there's any connection.
But you know that's how you find out corrupt people.
You probe them
you're
now.
Spending way above your limits. Then again, talking about the moral aspect of it, which I agree with, but I'm very strongly.
Yeah.
I remember when Two-Face Idibia went to Dubai to have his wedding. There was a public outcry. This is just a celebrity. That how can you take? Do you know how much revenue you are taking to Dubai? Do you understand?
Was it his money?
It was his money, and Akwa Ibom State helped him as well to go. But even with his money, I'm saying that these people, Tiwa Savage, Two-Face, were criticized by their fans that you make your money here in Nigeria, then you go and spend it in another country.
Sentiments.
Whether sentiments or anything. In any part of the world,
I should not travel.
can't
It's the same
imagine-
argument.
No.
Adegoye, you know he has a private
no,
jet.
let me tell you something.
It's
Wait,
the same
Devoe,
argument. Why
let
did
me
Adegoye have a private
they didn't
jet?
say private. Devoe, let me
It's the
explain.
same argument.
But they criticize
It's the
same argument.
Devoe, you're moving from the argument.
Otumba has a Rolls
There's a
Royce.
question.
Devoe, I'm not saying that he's
There's a question here. Tayo saying, have you seen Dino's
obscene display.
Oh.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But that's what I'm
everybody's complaining
saying.
about
He goes on social media to show his
Yeah.
So
It's
hits
ridiculous.
hits the point.
It's
Our
Dino Floyd
lawmakers,
Mayweather.
our lawmakers are overpaid.
Yes.
And the only reason you even say they're overpaid is because they're not doing their jobs. That's my point.
No, that's one point. I still stand with the fact that
They stole the money.
No,
It's only in
it's
They're
not
overpaid.
like that will find
No,
their
I still
politicians
stand
throwing
with the
lavish
fact that
parties
even
now.
if you have that much money,
It should
if
not
you're
be
in
seen.
public, no. Like them flying his whole guests to Dubai, it
You should not fly.
No,
I'm waiting for your point.
Hold on, if you let her finish.
Oh, your land now.
What I'm saying is that once you're a public officer, there are certain sacrifices you make for the good. It's just like the optics of you going on.
Look at it here now.
It spreads panic mode. You don't travel abroad and spend Nigerian money. You earn about.
In Nigeria, We have no. It's called
Please, I can't touch your,
SHAM. We don't have
mouth.
shame.
Yes, we don't have
We
shame.
don't care about those
Yes.
things. If we
Can
cared,
we just look at this story?
No.
What's this?
In other countries, when we're making austerity
we don't do those things now.
In other countries, when we're facing austerity
Just
measures,
speak on
if
this.
they're celebrating anything, reduce quietly.
Go on now.
This was not shame.
Go on
the
now.
head.
I only asked you for one favor. I've never asked you for a favor before.
You
This
You
is
know, I
what
always
I'm
tell you not
asking
to come to this arena. So,
This is what I'm
What's
asking
that?
for this.
if you told that
Touch
to,
it, touch
if you
it.
told that to Corona,
And you wipe it now. You wipe it.
You wipe it.
Exactly.
Go on.
Should have
Okay,
left
you
you
can
encouraging
turn it up.
traveling for frivolous reasons at this time.
No,
Maybe they
it's not
shut down because
official
of
now.
Coronavirus. Why is it traveling? It's not coronavirus.
How?
Is it not trying to?
Abio, thank you. They shut the National Assembly for coronavirus. Well, now you're going to
As in
Dubai.
so many, we don't have any shame in this
I don't want you
country.
to argue
course
and
you don't
miss the
shame,
point.
man.
That's my issue.
No, I agree with your point.
Uh-huh.
I totally agree with
She agrees with your point.
Like
I
your
don't with other
sentiments.
points.
No,
I'm
I
not
agree with
against
your
it. There's
point.
nothing
One thing
it's
is
a
that
sensitive.
You know,